Ju Wenjun, four-time women's world champion. Hello and welcome to what could be the final day as we reach Game 9 of the Women's World Championship match. And we are back to the bustling Chongqing. And with the majestic Yangtze River as the backdrop, well, the tension couldn't be higher. Reigning champion Ju Wenjun stands on the brink of history, needing just half point to claim her fifth world title. For Tan Zhongyi, the path is narrow and steep. She must win every single game to keep the match alive. One game from glory, one game for survival. It's all on the line. And I'm your host, International Master Ivan Kahauska, and it's been really a big ride. But I'm really pleased to have alongside me International Master Irene Sikander. Irene, this could be a big one.
It is. I mean, every single result that we will see today, either it is a draw or a win for Ju Wenjun or even a win for Tan Zhongyi, it is going to be very big in its own right, Yovi.
Absolutely. It is a momentous day today, but let's remind ourselves of the format.
China's top women players are battling for the Women's World Chess Championship again. Reigning champ Ju Wenjun took down Lei Ting-Jie in 2023. Now she is back to defend her title against challenger Tan Zhongyi. Like last time, the match is a hometown showdown. The first 6 games will be played in Shanghai, Ju Wenjun's turf. The next 6, Chongqing, where Tan Zhongyi calls home. It is a race to 6.5 points. If they are tied at 6, we will go to a 4-game rapid tiebreak. Still tied? 2 faster rapid games. Still tied? It is time for blitz. And if they still cannot break the deadlock, we will go to sudden death. One win will decide it all. Tiebreaks, if needed, will be played in Chongqing. It is a battle of skill, stamina, and strategy. When the dust settles, who will take home the title?
And looking at the scoreboard there, you can see it is pretty much one-way traffic with Ju Wenjun winning the last 4 games. What a streak. But this does mean that Tan Zhongyi, well, she has to win the remainder if she wants to tie the match. And that is such an uphill task because she is playing with the black pieces against a reinvigorated, a refreshed Ju Wenjun who just keeps leveling up her game. And as we see, the ceremonial first move getting ready to be made by 2 children. It's so nice to see the younger generations get involved, and I love the flourish with what they played, the moves d4, d5, and we'll see whether that gets recreated on the board. But smiles for the camera for Irene.
It's so cute, isn't it? And I can see today, if you don't notice, Yuvi, Tan Zhongyi looks a bit more relaxed, or maybe not a bit, it's way more relaxed. And maybe because of the children are there, they're spreading away their cuteness and their cuteness. But I believe they are national champions in their own age group, Yuvi. I think they're there for a reason.
Yeah, they're not just some local kids, but yeah, I agree with you. Definitely some superstars in the making. And talking about the potential superstar, well, Ju Wenjun, if she wins this title, it would be her 5th in a row. She would be only the 4th woman ever in history to actually do that. She'd be alongside the greats such as Vachier-Lagrave, Nona Gaprindashvili, Maya Chibanidze, and then Ju Wenjun. But still one game, and she's so close. We were discussing this before the kickoff. We were thinking probably Ju Wenjun will stick to her winning formula. She's been opening up with the king's pawn, marching it 2 squares forward. No reason to change.
No reason at all, yes. And E4 has been working well for her. Yes, I don't see her changing for this match, even though she only needs a draw. And but now the question is being asked back for Tan Zhongyi. What will she do? Because she's been playing Sicilian c5 against every e4, and we've been also discussing what could it be if she would like to, play some fighting game without any drawing chances, because if she comes up with her old repertoire, e4, e6, then there is French exchange. e4, e5, there might be some other thing to end. There you go, Yovi. First move e4 is already played.
Yep, and this is the big mystery. But she sticks to the Sicilian, and Ju Wenjun has been showing that she knows exactly how to lock this type of position down. The knight coming out. Will it be the reliable Rossolimo with the bishop coming out to b5, or will she employ something else? Now, yep, of course, the bishop comes out. So not a
Yep.
surprise for Tan Zhongyi.
Not a surprise for Ju Wenjun as well with the third move e6 here, and we've seen this in their previous game as well.
Yep, and in that game, Ju Wenjun went for castles kingside followed by a d4 approach. What will happen now? And for Ju Wenjun, we mustn't also forget that she's now under a lot of pressure. All the onus is on her. She is within tantalizing grasp of getting her 5th World Championship title. Maybe the nerves will start kicking in, although she did tell us at the last press conference that her philosophy was simply to take each move, each moment as it comes. Present focus. That's such good mindset. And there we have a change. Rook to e1.
We do have a change. Just to remind our viewers, on the first Rossolimo that we saw in their match, the third move was d4. And now it is different.
Yeah. And now the knight jumps into d4. So not the main move. I remember from my times playing in the Rossolimo a long time ago, was a6. Chasing the bishop away was the main line. But here, knight to d4, jumping in, and questions. What do you do? Do you drop back with the bishop? Do you exchange off knights? The immediate move that springs to mind is knight takes knight and go into that kind of position. But I think Tan Zhongyi will be very satisfied with this opening because, you know, what you want to do when you're in a must-win scenario and you've got the black pieces is, first up, you must not simplify the pawn structure. You must not simplify the position, make it easy for the opponent to play. You need to keep all the tension alive in the position, and preferably you want an imbalance in the pawn structure, because this will give you chances in an endgame. And we were thinking, like, it's very difficult to do against e2, e4. And here we're seeing the trade of knights.
Yeah. And, well, we have a pawn on d4 will soon to be challenged by c3. And I think this is going to be the direction that Ju Wenjun is headed, because it's just very natural in the Sicilian that you would always like to fight for the center. And so far, the center is being occupied by this little pawn on d4. And c3 is just one of the main ways to challenge it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're going to see c3 because, again, you're seeking clarification. d3 is also probably another possibility, but there you do get that imbalance. And, you know, black will be having that half-open c-line to exert some long-term pressure on, and it's just a case of navigating the middle game complexities. So c3 forces the nature of the game. d3 keeps it more tense. What will Ju Wenjun go for? And it's interesting. Again, I know this could be the final game, but still, it's the same kind of issues at stake here. You know, you still have the issue of your opponent's preparation. What will they have looked at? How can you avoid all of this? Should you be going c3, which is the main move? Should you go d3? Should you go for an alternative? And she chooses c3.
Yes, c3 is on the board. And I was just checking a few games here, and so many grandmasters were playing this variation. And the main move in this variation is to attack the bishop on b5 by playing a6. So you're asking this bishop where to go, because there might be a few different ways to continue, because after a6, you'll see that the square f1 is already emptied by the rook. So now it can easily drop back to f1, and it's a very safe square for the bishop. Bishop a4 is going to ask for more trouble here, but this is also another line that some players play. But of course, the reason why you don't like it is because it's simple. Because black will also have another tempo to attack the bishop, and then this bishop needs to go. And then at the same time, it gives the tempo for black to get this bishop out. So in a way, if you drop your bishop back to a4, you're helping your opponent to develop her pieces. So that's why I'm expecting here Ju Wenjun will just drop it back to, after a6, drop it back to f1, and then still sticking to her original plan to take the center back from black pieces.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, Irene, because I myself have done this, put the bishop back on a4, thinking, why waste time by dropping the bishop all the way home? And you find that the bishop on a4, it gets kicked back, as you mentioned, b3, c2. They don't have great futures on those squares either. So tuck it on f1, and you never know. It might even come out to g2 at a later point. Keep it flexible. So ironically enough, white has just done this whole shuffle with the bishop, and just look at white's pieces just visually. I mean, to someone new playing chess, it's very difficult to explain why white should have the advantage, because they've literally come out with their bishop to b5. They put it back on f1, and all the pieces are on the back row.
Yeah, totally. But I think it's just the prospect of having more space in the center, Yovi, because once you put your bishop on f1, now it's asking black's equation. What will black do against this pawn? Because now if you take this one, okay, I can think of a move like this even. This should be fine, or maybe taking with the knight is more natural, followed by d4. It is also totally fine. And yeah, you'll have more space in the center. I mean, it's still a game. It's still a game, but I like how Ju Wenjun is sticking to her own repertoire. She's not trying to invent anything, or maybe I'm speaking it too early, because still we haven't seen any decision by Ju Wenjun yet after a6. So not only bishop f1 and bishop f1, actually bishop d3 is also another variation here, which is going to be a transposition to other type of Sicilian, where you just simply move from f1 to d3. And the reason why you like the square d3 so much is because you would like to move it back to c2, and you can try to eye on h7 and at some near future, because once you get the center for yourself and then you plan to also push e5, this is a way of continuing the game. But here Ju Wenjun is still thinking, so I'm wondering whether she's going to play something else, because bishop f1 is a very well-known main line in this variation.
Yeah, again, I'm pretty sure that Ju knows this position. I'm pretty sure she knows bishop f1 is the most natural move. And yeah, as I speak, she drops it down. She's just simply taking her time. Again, you have to remember that what we're seeing here is the product of many months' hard work with teams, with engines. And so you are, and again, you can see by the speed with which Tan is playing, you are constantly trying to think of, how can I get out of my opponent's preparation? Because it's no fun having to play against someone who is just bashing out the moves, and you know that they are backed by a lot of deep analysis. So there we do see that the knight goes to c6, supporting the pawn, as Irene highlighted. You don't want to give ground in the center. If you take on c3, that would be very accommodating. White can get control. So again, questions to be answered here for Ju Wenjun. How is she going to be developing her queenside pieces?
Right. I was just checking again, Yovi. It looks like d3 is the old continuation here, like the old main continuation. It's very natural, right? You just would like to get this bishop out. I don't know where, probably f4, but it's more natural for you to get space around your pieces, of course. But the most trendy line in this position is to play b4, because with d3, still, even though the bishop can technically get out after this to d2, maybe to f4, but what do you get out of this diagonal? Nothing. So that's why these days most of the players, they switch to this b4 idea because they found that this is the right diagonal for the bishop, not only to simply developing the bishop, but also to put extra pressure around this pawn. Because in the initial position like this, you wouldn't like to take it right away, because then it will give this knight a very good square on around the center, and it's very hard for you to come up or to kick this knight out, because eventually there is e5 or maybe there is bishop c5. Everything is just cementing on d4, and therefore after knight c6 you'd like to create some not minority attack, but more like a side attack like this. Bishop b2 will happen, and a3 will also happen, and after all this capture on c3, then you have another c4 on the board. So this is the position that white should be aiming for. And just one of the recent games that I looked, and it's a very high quality game. It was between Ivan Cheparinov versus Fabiano Caruana just last year in the Olympiad in Hungary. And after before here, Fabiano played bishop d6 and then bishop b2. Now after bishop is already there on b2, this pawn has to do something. Oh, but we saw neither of those moves. We have another move that is knight a3.
Knight a3. Yeah, this I saw was also a possibility. Again, I'm checking the correspondence databases, and correspondence databases are often used by top players because basically these are games of people who have been analyzing with engines. It's allowed in correspondence chess, and they're using all the engines under the sun. And knight to a3 was a move. You don't really want to be taking that knight, even though at first glance it looks like you're doing everything perfectly according to the strategy book. But the reason why you don't want to be taking on a3 is because first up, you're conceding the dark squares to white. You know, white can just go a4, bishop can come out to a3, and there's still going to be pressure against d4, and the rook will swing into motion with rook to b1. So you don't really want to be doing that. So instead, what needs to be done is, I guess, the fight will happen in the center. White is going to say, try and trade on c3 for me, please. And black is going to go, no, I'm going to hold that point. I will die on the hill that is d4.
Right. So I was just thinking it could also be some transposition, because now when you're saying that the fight is actually in the center, now the question is for this bishop, because naturally you would also like to put your king into safety by castling, and now you have a few moves for the bishop, but we already ruled one out, that you shouldn't take this knight because then you lose control over the dark squares. So you can go to e7, you can go to d6, but most players here, they play bishop c5, which is more active, putting more protection over the pawn on d4, and b4 might happen, but you just drop back to a7, and this could be a way to continue the game as well.
Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing things along this line, with black just holding d4, and there, oh, no bishop c5. Okay, Tan has another idea up her sleeve, and it's not to put the bishop there. It doesn't want to provoke b4. So instead, okay, what's to stop white from playing knight to c2?
Okay, so knight c2 is the right move, of course. Again, you have to put extra pressure around this pawn to ask the question to black, hey, you have to get rid of your pawn, because I'd like to put my pawn just over that square. But in this position as well, Yovi, now, according to my own statistics that I said 2 days ago during game 8, we have to see some knight a6 move. I don't care whether it is white knight or it is black knight. Just to follow the trend, there has to be knight a6 in this game. So we'll see if it's going to happen.
Yeah, I remember that was a very quirky prediction. There's been a knight on a3, a knight on a4, and then knight a5 in game 8. And yeah, we'll see whether the knight continues on a6. But you never know.
You never know. Exactly. So
Exactly.
I was just checking one of the games here just to see what direction this position could bring us to. And yeah, your move knight c2 is a very natural move, and you don't have any other protection over this pawn, so eventually you'll have to take this. But then we are going to slowly move to a Maroczy type of position. So in this position, okay, you can play d6, let's say c4, and then castle, b3, the bishop will go from here, the queen over here. So this actually might happen because I don't see any other possibility of after knight c2, which just played by Ju Wenjun, by the way. Yeah, I don't see any other setup for black in order to continue this. Maybe there is, but it might not be as good.
Yes. But the problem is with the... Okay, well, I was going to ask d5 coming very quickly. Wow. This is the thing. Because when we did see the trade of d takes c3, yeah, black is objectively fine, but the position has clarified and Ju has no natural ways to put the pieces, establishing the control of the center. And we've seen Ju, when she is in her territory, she is just phenomenal. And then we do see... Yeah, okay, we have to dive in, right? What is this all about? Because there's a pawn for the taking.
Exactly. So let's be primitive in this position and just grab the pawns that we can. So I think we can start with taking this d pawn, because if we take with the ed, which I think should be the move in this position, but anyway, let's analyze this. Takes, and then you are not going to have an extra pawn because the queen is just there, standby, taking the pawn. So after d5, if you are very greedy and trying to get everything, so knight takes d4, let's say, c takes d4, and then after this happens, the rook comes over. Technically, you're a pawn up in this position, but the double pawn on the d file, especially the d4 pawn, is a very easy target of attack. You can put in bishop f6. Soon you have this b5, bishop b7. The rook is going to be very awkward if it stays on the fourth line. So it has to come back, and then it doesn't protect d4 anymore. So yeah, I think it's just a temporary pawn sacrifice that black is doing, but in return, black has a huge compensation and possibly grabbing the pawn back in the near future. So Yovi, I don't think black is
No.
really sacrificing the pawn here.
Well, I agree with you. I don't feel that way, but d5 certainly does invite white not to actually capture the pawn on d4, because as you've mentioned, Irene, that just looks positionally very good for black. But e5, you can close the center down and you can change the nature of the position, because with a pawn on e5, remember that the goal is to, well, attack on the king side. You try and get your bishop to d3.
Yes, that's true. But okay, I think it's almost forced to take on c3 in this position. And how do you take it back? Or maybe I don't have to, actually. Hang on. Maybe I should put more protection. Since this is very looking like a French type of structure, let's do it French way. Queen b6 maybe. Just to keep control over the d4 pawn.
Yeah, but just like the French, you do also have Queen G4 ideas. So
That's right. Oh, there's now another complication. If you castle, all the traits on d4 is better for white, I guess. Like, okay, let's say castle here.
And then knight takes.
Knight takes, yeah, you have to take with the knight for sure. Mm-hmm.
Although I'm not entirely happy, I've got to say, because the extra pawn that you do get doesn't seem to be so significant at all. And what will count way more is the nuisance factor of the queen on b6, and also the fact that there will be a half-opened c-line. Like, I almost feel that there might be dancing needed, so after knight takes knight, you might have to go queen takes.
Or
yeah, the bishop
bishop
c5.
here
Yeah, this
first,
is the
yeah.
thing. And then problems with the pawn on f2. No, I don't like this one, actually.
Yeah. Okay, hang on. So let's bring this one back and then put it on e5. I also don't like queen b6, to be honest, because my original idea is to play b5. So I might have to hang on. What are their ideas in French, right? f6. It's very, very common to play f6. I don't know whether it is the right time, because I see after queen h5 there is just g6. But yeah, let's try this.
Yeah. So knight takes d4 would be my first reaction to that, because any knight takes e5, I'm hoping to meet that with f4 and snacking on your pawn on e6. Yeah.
Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, so it doesn't work as well then. This f6, although it looks very typical to play in such a position. Then maybe black doesn't have to do anything. Just let this pawn to be taken, and
yeah, I mean, could you just castle?
Let's see.
Or go bishop d7. Just focus on quick development, and then, because one of the things that you realize about this position, so say white goes knight takes, just to kind of put some moves on the board, knight takes pawn. If the knight captures c takes, you've got moves like queen b6, which are mega annoying, bishop to d7, and then a rook quickly goes to c8. And you feel like white's attack isn't getting anywhere, whereas the black rook is really going to be infiltrating onto c2 anytime now.
Hang on, but in this position, I think we can force the matter a little bit, because it is only the queen who is protecting this. I can try to force it by play f5, so that the bishop will go to f6 if white accepts the en passant. If not, it's interesting. I'm so tempted to play g5.
g5, yeah, because the center is really stable. So I one of the guidelines about this type of position is when the center is stable, there's no tension between pawns, you can expand on the wings. So absolutely, g5 would be on
g5
my radar
should
as
be
well.
it, yeah. And after this, I think you can put in f.
Queen takes.
Oh yeah, I forgot the bishop cannot jump over the pawn. I forgot that this pawn is still there. I mean, because usually when you have this type of structure, the bishop is free to go. But yeah, I forgot that there's a pawn on d2, of course. Yeah, this is it. Queen takes d4. Yeah, it should be very pleasant for black in this position. So what I see here is a trick, Yovi, that Tan Zhongyi is being very tricky in her opening choice. There's always so many things that trying to provoke Ju Wenjun to come up with some other ideas. And all of the moves that we've put for Ju Wenjun is kind of like natural move, but there's always something for black to reply it. So this position is quite unclear, and probably this is the type of position that Tan Zhongyi should actually play right now.
Yes, definitely. Advancing the pawn for white to e5 is definitely a double-edged thing, and falls into the line of play that Tan wants to have. You have to remember that Tan Zhongyi, she is in a must-win scenario, and as we await Ju Wenjun's decision as she decides whether to capture the pawn on d4, capture pawns on d5, we're going to go on our first break, but more of the action to come after this.
Join me in game review as we break down this chess telenovela. Ju opens with d4, and after e3, white hints at going for a cole or even a cheeky Zuckertor system. But after c5 ban, Ju throws in the surprise punch with the sideline d takes e5. The idea? White wants to cling to that extra pawn like it is the last slice of pizza of a party. But after b6, white just can't keep the pawn chain together. We end up in a widely unbalanced position where white has two juicy pass pawns, but black has central control that would make a Spartan blush. Both sides keep developing pieces, and in this position, e5 was the best shot, and after e4, c4 would have kept the game spicy and complex. But no, Lei goes for the direct c4 instead, and after bishop c3, white locks down the dark squares and supports that sweet pass pawn on a5. The best move here was rook a2, taking advantage of the pin on the a file since knight takes a5 wasn't possible because of rook f to a1. But Ju chooses the tempting bishop takes f6, getting two pieces for a rook and a pawn. Tasty exchange, but that glorious a5 pawn is toast. From here, we reach an endgame, where black had to go for bishop c5 in this position, to keep the pawn chain tight and tidy. But oh no, e5 is a blunder that is going to cost Lei the game. After this knight jump, one of the pawns, either the e5 or the d5 fella, is doomed thanks to a classic fork on e7. Now the minor pieces come to the party and block those pawns like bouncers at a nightclub. Knight b1 is one of those moves that makes you feel like a grandmaster, because knight c3 is inevitable, and the pressure on d5 is turning up like a hip-hop beat on Friday night. And now the knight dance begins. Once the knight lands on f4, nobody can stop knight takes d5, and black's position will collapse. Finally, after some moves, white manages to munch that pawn on d5. From here, the d4 pawn becomes a pass bullet train heading straight to promotion. The c pawn drops after a little zigzagging, and the d pawn keeps galloping like a wild stallion. Once it reaches d7, it's game over, and with that, Ju Wenjun reaches the summit. World champion!
And we are back to game 9 of the FIDE Women's World Championship. And if I'm going to stress this point time and time again, this is a critical time for Tan Zhongyi. She's in a must-win scenario. She must win with the black pieces. And that means she has to take all the risk in the position. A draw is insufficient. And Ju Wenjun, reigning champion, for her, a draw is all she needs. So what does she do? She took some decisions and they are being played out very quickly. Irene, let's dive in and check the action, because we left at this moment. Plenty of play for both sides if white had chosen to go e5, but Ju Wenjun saw a path to comfortable equality and she's grabbed it.
Yes. So we kind of looking at this a little bit before, after knight takes d4, c takes d4, and d takes e4. And in this position, we only analyze one line, that is to capture the pawn like this with the rook. It looks tempting, it's a free pawn, but not for long. So instead, Ju Wenjun is prioritizing her development, and instead of taking the pawn on e4 with the rook, she played d3. This is the equalization that you were talking about, Yovi. She's not taking any risk. She is getting everything out, the bishops, the queen, and the only thing maybe she regret a little bit is the potential of having the IQP or isolated queen pawn over here on d4. But it's still a game. It's going to be still very hard for black to attack the pawn on d4, but it is still a little bit new, something like that you don't like to have in the position. But let's see, d3 is on the board, and we have a move here. E takes d3. Haha.
That was more or less forced, Irene, because I think probably technically the best move is queen takes d4. If you were playing black in a normal game, you take the pawn on d4, and after pawn takes e4, you can trade off queens and say, haha, there is zero problem whatsoever for black after bishop to d7, bishop c6. It's equal. But Tan Zhongyi, she's in a must-win scenario. She cannot go into that. So she has to embrace this type of position. And she's going to be hedging all her bets on the long-term prospects. She wants to trade off into an endgame, saddle white with that d4 pawn, which is completely weak. And she's going to do the CRD, which is control, you restrain, and then you destroy. So basically control just means you stop it advancing forwards, and then once you've done that, then you can surround the pawn, and then you can actually win it. That's the theory. In practice, in reality, is a lot more dynamic, because suddenly white's pieces, they come into play, right? White has an open C line, there's bishops that can be posted up to fantastic diagonals, so it's still going to be very much a fight.
It is. But when I was talking about the IQP as well, Yovi, now I remember, you don't really have to preserve your IQP. You could try to exchange it. So this is why Ju Wenjun is currently thinking. She is planning to how to put it on d5 at some point later. So, for example, if you take with a queen, castle, after playing rook d1, you could easily play d5 on the next move, and then exchange it, and then perhaps there will be also some queens exchange, and we'll see some endgame. On the other hand, after e takes d3, if you also have the same idea of pushing d5 and you would like to take this pawn with the bishop, and after castle here, with just one move like this, for example, you already preserve your idea to play d5 next. So I think both are very much playable, but I like taking with the bishop more, just because it looks more natural. You'd like to get this bishop on d3, not only to help the d4, d5, but at some point you can also attack this h7 pawn. So that is just one simple plan. If you would like to get rid your IQP, just exchange it.
Yeah, and I also like taking with the bishop because, okay, the bishop wasn't doing anything on f1, but it also sets up a trap, because after bishop takes d3, Irene, we have to put it on the board. You cannot get greedy and grab on d4. Oh, no. Your hands will get caught in the cookie jar, because bishop to b5 check is quite a horrible, horrible check. And then your queen falls off, I'm afraid.
Is that British expression, cookie jar? Because it looks so cute with this expression. It's not like mousetrap or anything.
I think it's an American one, because we don't actually use cookies too often. We kind of say biscuits, and their biscuits are completely different to what our biscuits are. Their biscuits are like scones. So a bit of a mix up there. Okay, so we are expecting a choice. It's a nice choice for Ju Wenjun. She has many plans. She doesn't have to go for this elimination in the center. That would just completely be very level. She can choose to play it on. She can go bishop takes d3 with ideas of going bishop e4, bishop c4, controlling the c line. Often it's said that if you control the open line and you have an isolated queen's pawn, okay, that's good enough compensation. You need to justify this problem that you have with structure with activity. You need to keep that those scales level. So your structure might be down here, but your activity has to be up here. So
Yep. And she's taken it with the bishop, Yovi. So we'll see. This is going to be quite a technical game. But since white is going to be satisfied with a draw, then I think Ju Wenjun will not take so much risk in continuing the game. Okay, castle. Tan Zhongyi just played castle, and we'll see if Ju Wenjun is really in a hurry to put d4 to d5, or she can actually do something else too. I mean, it's not the only plan that white can do in this position. You can preserve this pawn, or my natural instinct is to play bishop e4 anyway. Not that I'm thinking just to play d4 d5, but this pawn. I don't like this bishop to somehow develop easily. If the bishop would like to get out via d7, you have to control b7 first. But if you play a move like rook b8, there might be bishop f4 with the tempo. So giving a little distraction there, something that black can be uncomfortable with.
Yeah, I actually, yeah, I was also thinking same direction as you, bishop e4. I was also liking bishop f4, and other moves. I mean, you can't unfortunately go d5 immediately because you just simply capture with the pawn. But okay, that's not a problem. But I think that Ju will be playing bishop e4. It's very much in her style, right? She doesn't feel comfortable with structural weaknesses, so she is just going to be looking at eliminating them. Bishop e4, probably the answer will be bishop to f6, and we'll see something like that, where Tan will be having to rely on activity in order to pose any kind of problems to Ju Wenjun, but very comfortable position for the reigning champion. And when she just needs half a point, yeah, it's looking bleak for Tan. But what can Tan do? It's out of her control.
Exactly.
Have you ever been in this situation? There we see bishop to e4 being played. Have you ever been in this situation before where you've had to win a game with the black pieces?
Yeah, and it's never easy, and it's never comfortable to prepare the night before, and then you have to, come up with forcing win position or something. It's hard as black. So the best that I could come up with is to not give my opponent some symmetrical variation, because usually in any symmetrical variation, like in Italy or French or Petrov, this type of openings, it can easily get equalized. So something, some edge has to be done, probably like modern defense, which objectively is not the best opening, and then white can easily get a better position. But you just have to, play this little edge, like something that to confuse your opponent as well. But I don't think Tan Zhongyi is successful in this opening against Ju Wenjun. But again, it's not her fault, because Ju Wenjun tends to be very well prepared in this variation as well. She might not take the best moves as white, but it is enough, because the match situation just requires her to just get half a point to win the match.
Yeah. Okay, so Tan Zhongyi, she has to win. She has to murky the waters, and I'm thinking how to do that. So d5, as you've pointed out, is a way for Ju just to clarify the position, just equalize the pawn structure, and that's going to be very, very difficult as black to push for a win. So how best to handle this? So I was thinking queen to b6. If we can
Queen
dive
b6.
into the analysis. Yeah, queen to b6, potentially meeting d5 with rook to d8. And you're arguing basically that should white want to liquidate in the center, all the trades are going to be favoring black. So you'd rather white were capturing on e6 rather than black.
That's true. But don't forget that this h7 pawn is half hanging in the air. So after I play d5 and then you try to pin the pawn, I can step aside with the queen while attacking the h7 pawn. So it's going to be quite a balanced trade. If you take this pawn, I'll take the other pawn. And materially speaking, it's still, equal. And you have to step to f8 because this bishop was hanging, and I mean, I just don't see how black should be better in this position. For instance, coming back bishop f5 should be sufficient, but maybe there's a better way in dealing this position. Probably bishop e3 or bishop f4. I think bishop f4 is better because you'd like to play bishop c7, and then rook 8 d1 is coming too. It's very comfortable for white. So if you're being stubborn in stopping d4, d5, this punishment you might get. But on the other hand, it's also going to be tricky. There's one idea where I would like to play, that is bishop f6. The idea is simple. Once you play d4, d5, this bishop is having some control over b2, so that this bishop cannot really move very easily. And after this trade, let's say you take it with the bishop, and now in this position, I was tempted to just move this bishop, actually, maybe with the tempo like this. Okay, just for analysis sake, what I'm trying to demonstrate is after queen takes, like this, materially speaking, it's equal, but there is one big difference, that is the bishop and this bishop. So this is something that black might try to achieve, although if we are being very accurate after bishop e4, bishop f6, the best way, I guess, in this position is to preserve your IQP, and also in this position, just play bishop e3, followed by queen b3. So we are using the same strategy that black was trying to use against us. And after queen b3, put the rook on the center, you're attacking this, and you're also preparing for d5. So this could be a very solid setup that white can get. But we have a move, Yovi, and it is bishop f6.
Yes, and she's hoping for exactly that, right? When the position opens up, that her pieces are better placed, and if she can tie the bishop to c1, then okay, she will stand a little bit better. It's uncomfortable, and I guess that's something to rely on. And I'm also expecting the same: bishop to e3, preserve d4, and then carry on with queen b3, centralize the rooks, and still you're going to get d5 in. It's okay. And one of the great things about bishop e3 is that you're actually fighting against queen b6 in some way. Or are you? I mean, can black still go queen b6?
In principle, maybe you can. After this, like,
I wouldn't want to be playing this just intuitively because you're inviting d5, but if with some firm calculation that you work out that you can snatch on b2.
Yeah, I'm still calculating. Let's just do it. So d5, and then let's say you want to take this one. Okay, you're threatening to take the rook, so let's step aside with the rook and then ask where this queen will go. Would you like to take another pawn?
Yeah, the more the merrier. Let's demonstrate why one shouldn't be so reckless with the black queen.
Okay, so my initial instinct to play this move, d6, so that I can play d7. Okay, d6, rook d8, bishop b6. Okay, bishop e3 is on the board, by the way, so we are analyzing in the right direction.
But one thing, though, I do think your d6 is very strong because the 2 extra pawns that black has is irrelevant, right?
All this activity, right? You've been talking about it before, yeah.
It really feels very strong. Okay, so we don't expect any moves like queen to b6. That was just a shot in the dark. Okay, let's find something a little bit more concrete for black, because you need to fight against this queen b3 plan followed by d5, and then white is very active.
Yeah, also you have a few things hanging, like queen b3 is there, probably is the best move anyway, but also white is not limited to only that idea. White can drop the queen to f3 and then attacking in such a battery with the bishop in front of the queen. But I still like queen b3 better, just because. Why do I like it better? Maybe because the possibility after d5 and then putting the bishop on b6, it's one way. And also, I think it's because I'm not very tempted to attack the king side. It is very it looks very yummy, this h7 pawn, but you can only attack it once. And after a move like, okay, let's put some move over here, like let's say rook b8. And then after a move like this, you can only attack it once like this. But there should be a better way to do this position. Probably, immediate d5.
Yeah, also ideas that I've seen before is to go bishop to f4 as well, followed by bishop to e5.
Okay,
You just
there should
anchor
be.
that bishop to that square.
Yeah.
And then also let's not forget that you can also go d5. You're ready with that opening. Yeah.
Putting it back and then just, I can even play d6 here.
D6.
Yeah, and then this should lose at some point, this b7 pawn. Okay. Well, actually, Yovi, it's not as easy as I thought for black to equalize in this position. Because normally when you have an IQP, your opponent would like to play it against you. But in this position, because of the activity of these bishops, especially the one on e4, it's very hard for black to come up with an accurate developing move, because you cannot just be stuck like this with black. Eventually, this bishop has to go, and your queen also probably has to go as well, so that you can connect the rook, and so that the rook can be entering the central files. But there's no easy answer to this, because if you move it now, bishop d7, and after bishop b7,
and you also have queen c2. You can flick in queen c2 whenever as well.
Queen c2, that's true. Yeah, queen c2 attacking this, and after, let's say you move it like this, you have this bishop b7, rook b8, and this one is protected. You can just, you can even take this one, and then you are 2 pawns up. No easy way. Okay, and rook b8 we saw was not really a good move, but how else?
Well, normally you fight against this potential attack on h7, either by going g6, setting up that wall of pawns. This is actually really relevant in the normal IQP positions with lots of minor pieces. You set up a zigzag, and it's very difficult to break down. But here, because there've been some trades, maybe you have to go h6. Although h6 comes with its own set of risks, because I'll tell you why. Because if white were to go bishop c2, it's probably not really relevant here. And queen to d3, it's very difficult to fight off this battery without giving up material.
Okay.
And this is like mega relevant in IQP positions in general, especially, if white has some knights on the board, you don't want to be going h6. G6 is the way forward.
Yep.
But here's a bit different.
Yep. Yeah, I think you are absolutely right. I think in this position, black should make a waiting move, although you cannot really wait too much. I was thinking queen b3 was one of the moves, but maybe in this position you can try to take this, because in many cases you can just play e5 to support the bishop on d4. Like, let's say you bring the rook over, and then you have this e5, and I mean, of course, it's equal. But if white would like to have more, I think you have to stop it first. Like, let me think. Probably, how to stop this? Is it even possible? Oh, rook c1. Like,
yeah,
you're still developing your piece, but you're not giving this one yet. I mean, rook c1 is always a useful move to make.
This is the thing. And it's black the one that's struggling with this backward bishop on c8 that's not getting out. Like normally, Irene, you fight these things with activity. You don't care so much about material. So normally you'll be looking at moves like bishop to d7, you give up the b7 pawn, and you just put a rook on b2, and you're like, okay, compensation. not easy to do here.
Maybe that should be the case because you cannot really wait too much. Maybe you just have to sacrifice your pawn for the activity, and then hoping that it will be left with this pawn and in this pawn in the end, and black could find enough compensation to equalize the position. Like let's say what you said was bishop b7 here, takes like this, and then rook b8, and then you go willingly into this position. But again, still a pawn is a pawn. Yeah, and this might be. I don't think this is going to happen.
No,
But
this is not good. Okay.
but I just
Okay,
realized,
maybe
Yovi,
back. Yeah.
no more knights on the board. So my prediction is off.
You
No knight
you got it
a6.
wrong. No knight will come to a6, but maybe a bishop will come to a6. Does that count? Because we did see.
No,
So say, for
no.
instance, Tan is feeling like, okay, there's too much pressure, and she wants to activate. Okay, she does play g6,
Mhm.
and she sets up this zigzag wall of pawns, which usually is a really effective defensive formation when white has more minor pieces. Maybe this isn't the most accurate move so far. Maybe she needed to just, give up a pawn and get active, but g6 being played. Yeah, her hands are really tied by the match situation. So rook to c1, we didn't really have a great answer to this, did we?
Not yet, but let's keep finding. Maybe now the h7 is kind of safe. Queen b6. Would you like to play such a move?
Maybe
Or
we
queen,
have to. Let's investigate.
or queen f5 because now a2 is hanging, and then on the way.
Yes, something active, right?
Something active, yeah. Although you see,
you
like,
can't just
computer
sit
doesn't
there.
like it.
No, but the computer plays perfect chess and godlike level, and humans don't. So maybe it's not so easy to find the antidote to this. So queen a5.
Yovi, I found just one
Mhm.
funny variation. It might not work, but it's just funny. Like you play rook c5, queen takes, and then rook h5. And then if you take,
Oh,
and then now, of course, you shouldn't take, but it's just to showcase this idea. Takes over here, it's going to be mate in one, but then the rook tried to go over so that if you take this, the king will come up this way to f8 and e7. But then, hang on, how to win this immediately? There should be a way to do it. Just
yes.
this. Takes here and then bishop g6.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, there you go. No. Good idea, but wrong execution.
But I think you can go bishop h6, check, and king e7, and then go bishop to g6.
Okay, this is, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, wrong execution. Should give a check first and then bishop g6. Yeah, so that was just some creativity that I had in my mind
Yeah,
after
well,
looking at the
unfortunately, but it
position.
actually goes to show sometimes the danger of doing something like that. It looks really tempting, but
Mhm.
ultimately, a rook on h5 may not be the best position for it. So if you see something like rook c5, queen takes a2, rook h5, and you work out, if you capture, then I'm going to win. But as you can see, black isn't obliged to capture. And I
Yep.
almost feel that this is basically the match in a nutshell. Like Tan has played all these aggressive, creative ideas that have been hinging on tactical points. But Ju has been like, I don't have to take. No. I can just play a nice developing move, get the bishop into the game, or queen takes b2, and then Tan's pieces have been left looking very clumsy. So and I just thought that variation was perfect illustration in general.
Yeah,
But okay,
but we don't
let's go
have
back
a
to
move
queen
yet.
a5 because there
So,
are
okay.
there are moves that white can play. Rook c1, queen a5. So you can have queen f3. There's a loose piece on f6. We also have a pawn on b7 that's hanging.
That's true. It's double attack, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, although, okay, I think you can survive this after bishop b7 if you The thing is, I think you shouldn't take immediately because this is the weakness
No.
in black's position anyway. You should just keep pressuring it and then maybe play a move like a3, for example. Just keep everything under protection, because if you eliminate your opponent's weakness in exchange with another pawns of yours, okay, maybe this one is fine to take, maybe this is also fine to play this and then grab this one. It should be equalish, or even black is better now. The thing is, this pawn is kind of weak, not as strong as before. So let's see, g6, rook c1, queen f5, and after queen f3, bishop g7. Yeah, just keep this one under pressure and play a3 instead.
Yeah. And all the time, this is so instrumental. You've got rook c5 in your back pocket. Bishop takes b7, as you highlighted, literally solves black's problems for them. Black's problem is all about that bishop on c8.
Watch out,
and
Yovi.
grabbing that pawn. Mhm.
Rook c5, rook e1 is hanging.
Oh, well, there you go. Good morning. my daily dose of blunder there. Yeah. Yeah, because it wasn't hanging before. That's why you put the idea in my head.
Yes.
But anyway, I accept. I didn't. Sometimes I tell you, these diagonal moves are actually really difficult to spot, especially from a long range. So, and we have seen Ju. She's been fantastic at finding these geometrical patterns. You know, working all over the board. You know, switching from the left to the right. She's been absolutely amazing. Okay. Ooh, that didn't look great for black. What about queen to b6? With after rook c1, because rook c1 is such a Ju Wenjun type of move. You know, introduce a new piece. Queen b6. It's the old friend d5 again. d5 followed by d6, and
I'm afraid so. Yeah. Yeah. This. If this happens on the board, then we are not looking for a draw result, Yovi. I think Ju Wenjun might try to finish off the match with another victory.
Yeah. Okay, so no queen b6. Okay, so how to handle this one? What are the waiting moves that black does? So black could go queen to d6. Okay, there's something that I do. Queen d6, and you know the slow unraveling begins.
But it's also there's d5 still, right? Because you have this bishop c5 suddenly.
Bishop c5. Oof, take it away. Okay, so you can't do that.
You see, it is hard. It is hard. I mean, we already come up with many natural moves, and none of them really work. Or maybe if they work, it has to be like 100% accurate, because for human point of view, yeah, now white is just dominating the position again.
Yeah, but Ju Wenjun hasn't made the move rook c1. Perhaps the match situation is also playing on her mind. She's considering how can she neutralize this position, just kill it of any play for black. Is she really considering d5? Could that be going through her mind?
I don't think so. I don't think so. One of the strengths that Ju Wenjun has as a women's world champion is her ability to keep being objective regardless of the match situation. This is something that I really admire, because it's very easy. I've been in a situation where I just needed a draw, let's say, to get a norm or to get the champion title or anything like that, and all the scenarios were just playing in my head. You know, it was very hard for me to refocus to the game and just keep being objective to the evaluation of the position. But this is not going to happen with Ju Wenjun. If her evaluation is skewed a little bit, it's just because the other alternative is not going to give her so much advantage. So she would take like the less risky one, but keep the advantage alive. So I think rook c1 should really come naturally based on the process of elimination.
Yeah, and it's always a good idea to kind of take your time, not rush. And like you say, we've all been in scenarios where, we've been playing for norms. I remember when I was playing for my first Grandmaster norm, I just needed a draw and I could barely think. And then only when I was completely lost did I relax and go, okay, well, that's gone out of the window. And then I fought it back to a draw. And then I got nervous again. And then I lost in the night. So no,
You had
no,
me
no
there.
norm, no nothing.
You had me excited there, Yogi, for a sec, but then
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was the closest I've ever been to a Grandmaster norm. I had a tournament of my life there. But anyway, it didn't happen. But okay, well, Ju Wenjun's just considering, rook c1, very natural. The rook occupies an open line. Maybe she's considering queen to d2. Maybe she's just steadying her nerves, making sure that she comes up with the optimal strategy. But one thing for sure is that Ju Wenjun is calm as ever. And I thought it was so instructive in the press conference how she just goes, no, I'm just going to take this match situation, take this game, moment by moment. And she's been in this situation before. She's, throughout her chess career, she's had to survive all kinds of roller coasters. Like in 2018, when she played the knockout final against Katerina Lagno, she had to win on demand. She did. And then she had to face off in the tiebreak. She also had to do a clutch win against Li Tingjie in 2023. She also had to come from behind and defeat Alexandra Garyashkina. She's done that. So she's able to steady her nerves. And we can all remember Game 12 from 2023, Li Tingjie, when we all thought that if it's going to be a draw, Irene, we thought it was Game 12, agree a draw, go for the Magnus Carlsen approach. Yeah, where you just trust your rapid skills. And no, it was a full-on fight. And Ju Wenjun played the most riskiest of lines, and it was a gamble, and she won.
yeah, I remember that match as well. Yeah, I also thought it was going to be a draw, but the match ended with, I would say, not that emotional, but we could see some emotions from the players, especially Tingje, who is always very, very cheerful, and she accepted the defeat in a gracious way. But yeah, now it's about to happen again. This could be the last day we commentate UV. Although, of course, as a commentator, I'd like to commentate until the end. I love covering tie breaks, but it's going to be a miracle if we are going to see that day.
Yeah, well, as we mentioned, Tan Zhongyi's path is very narrow. It's very steep. She has to win 4 games on demand. Not that's such a big ask. And actually, sometimes the best thing you can do is break it down. You go, well, winning 4 out of 4 is difficult, but it's possible to win 1 game, and then another game, and then another, and then another. And when you break it down into small little steps, it becomes a lot more manageable. So that's my psychological advice for the day.
That's a very good advice. That reminds me of a story in All England. You know how Indonesia is pretty good at badminton, and one of our legends, Rudy Hartono, he was fighting in the final of All England badminton, and he was down, I guess, to 2010, as in his opponent was already on 20 and the game point is 21, so just one more point, and he was like 10 or some, I don't know, like 11, something like that. It was a huge difference of score, but then he told to himself, like, just 1 point at a time, 1 point at a time, until he got to 2020 and it's a deuce, and then he could win the match. Yeah, you're totally right. So do not see it as a long journey, but take it block by block, just one at a time, and then before you know it, you'll get there.
Yeah, one of my favorite comeback stories involves a friend of ours, Irina Krush, and I remember she had a horrendous start in the US Women's Championship, really terrible. And the only way that she even had a small chance of winning was if she won the remainder of her games. Her start was that bad, and we do see Queen to B3 on the board. And her coach said to her, "Okay, well, let's see what you're made of." And those words really had an impact on me, that suddenly the emphasis kind of shifted, not on the result, but on your character. And there with queen to b3, well, Ju Wenjun is putting pressure against b7, but well, now it's time to see what Tan is made of, because she does have a possibility of taking on d4. Will she go for it?
She has to think very, very deep in this position. So let's explore after what happens after this queen b3, whether d4 is takeable, because we ruled it out before. This is pretty much what you can do. So if you put your rook in the center like this, everything looks very, very nice. Like optically, everything looks very good for white, because every single piece here is working, and e5 is the only move. And now I'm thinking, Yuvi, this could be the way to just equalize the game very easily. You can just take this, and then bishop d5. And then the next move, you can grab this. Or if black is being stubborn, holding this pawn by playing queen f6, you can put another piece to attack it. Which one do you want, the queen or the rook?
Your choice.
I like the rook, because I think the queen is already very well placed on b3, and then just double up like this with a superior bishop in the center. Now I'm thinking Ju Wenjun is playing queen b3 just because of the match situation, because I think if she is required to win this game, she would play differently, like a more ambitious way, like rook c1, for example. So, but yeah, a draw is enough for her. And now I'm worried that this is one of those positions where if you don't take the pawn on d4 and go for this equal, almost endgame position, then black will be stuck in a worsened position. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe bishop d4 is a must here. Let's come up with some other move, but what can it be?
This is the issue, right? If you're not playing bishop takes d4, then what are you doing? Are you going queen e7, but then you're setting yourself for d5 ideas?
Yeah, definitely. This is
and then suddenly the opening, and it just looks awful. I mean, again, the problem is this light square bishop on c8, so you can't be going rook. Another way to untangle is often to go rook a7, b5, and then the rook swings over to d7. But lo and behold, if you wanted to go rook a7, you needed to do it earlier, because
but now there's
rook
d5.
a7 is going to be met by d5, so you can cross that one off the checklist. So no. And what else is there?
Rook b8. Let's try rook b8. But then d5 is just. d5 is just very ready to be played, and after you take it, there's so many things. You can play bishop b6 first even, or you can take d5 right away, it's fine. You can, what else, play rook d1 also. Like, so many options here.
I just like taking on d5 first.
Yeah,
give me a pawn, I will take it. Bishop d5, and then you got so many moves. Rook d1 is in the air. Where is the black queen gonna find solace? In fact, she's almost on the verge of getting trapped. And it's also the rook on f8, which is a problem. So bishop h6 is coming. No, you don't touch this position at all. You're not ready for the opening. So the only move that I can see in the game position is to grit your teeth, take the pawn on d4, and just hope you get some chances. Okay, so bishop takes d4. Let's have a look again. So bishop takes, rook. Yep. And then
e5 is force only move. Otherwise, you lose your bishop. And then, of course, this is just one way to think. I haven't really thought of other possibility, but when I saw this line that I showed before, I think it's good enough. Like, it's good enough to continue this position like this.
And after queen f6, there was one thing that I thought black could try their luck with. So after rook e4, I thought they could go to d3 and go,
Okay, then I have to keep catching it. Yeah, I think I just have to keep chasing this pawn with the rook, maybe. You see how? F5. Yes. I forgot about this bishop f5. That's true. So gotta be precise then. But what can I do? Yeah, that's why maybe this is not a good move. Maybe just simply chase it with a pawn, like queen d3. It should be enough, and then next move you take on d4. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay. Yeah, and this one is, yeah. I mean, maybe we can just kind of just to show it out why this position. You know, say for instance, if the bishop comes out to f5, queen takes d4, we can show why it's as dead as a dodo. I have a dodo lamp sitting on my desk. And, and it's just like that piece. I mean, the thing is, you know, the bishop on d5 is so good. It's even you would prefer white here
Of
as well,
course.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. If I don't see the evaluation, but I would still think that this position is slightly better for white just because of this bishop and the possibility of putting the rook in the back rank. Now, speaking of which, maybe this is the time for black to actually has to exchange this rook just to get the back rank access. But then the more you trade pieces, the easier it is to get the draw. So yeah, yeah.
Like for
This
instance,
position
you can
is
see it like g4 is coming, rook takes rook, g4 comes, and then you know the pawn on b7 is hanging. It's just so even.
that's true. Maybe it's only move to play. Ooh, okay, we have a move here, by the way. Bishop takes d4. Yeah, I think Tan Zhongyi realized that even if she doesn't want to play this move, I think she has to. And yeah, she played it. Bishop takes d4.
Yeah.
And now I
Okay.
think rook a d1 will come very, very soon.
Well, rook a d1 is what we were calculating. But we do see some hesitation from Ju. Is she considering to capture the bishop and then go rook a d1? You know, just playing. But why take the risk?
Yeah, why take the risk? I think, or is it possible that rook e d1 instead of rook a d1?
Could be, could be.
But I still think rook a d1 is still the best because just for real reason here, you got all your rooks, you know, in the center. After e5 takes. I was saying bishop d5, but there's also another move maybe in this position that's better than bishop d5.
I like bishop to d5 because it just improves the bishop and also sets up rook takes d4, and also you're preventing black from playing rook e8 because you're targeting f7. So I do like this approach.
What about this UV? Queen f3 in this position. But rook d8 coming up. Yeah, after takes rook d8. Okay. I just want to get this pawn as soon as possible on d4.
Yeah, but you were doing that quite effectively. Maybe if the queen steps, the thing is the queen can step up to d3. You don't have to, because I was thinking queen c4, you got d3, and you know,
Yeah.
maybe you could fight a little bit there.
Also, if queen c4, maybe it's I was thinking like bishop e6. Just some
I have, yeah.
Do you have another move?
Okay, so I was thinking bishop to g4, but bishop g4 is simply met by queen takes d4. And we start regretting having opened up with the king on g6. So yeah, this is no good. This is a worse form. Okay.
I was about to mention b5. This looks like, okay, you want to get your rook out immediately, but there's queen c7. And it's going to be pretty hard on how to handle
Hey,
this?
then you can go
Oh.
bishop g4.
There's bishop g4. Right.
And you breathe a huge sigh of relief, and Tan will be very, very happy.
That's true.
Yeah, because you
That's
can
true.
meet with, well, f3 is still, we still got to fight on with f3, and then you still have rook ac8, and okay, it gets complicated.
Okay. All right. So after queen f6, queen d3, I think that's the most stable option in this position, just to get rid of this pawn on d4 without risking anything.
Okay, but Ju isn't making the move that we're expecting, rook a to d1. So what could she be considering? I mean, the only other one that I can see is bishop takes bishop. Is she planning that?
Let's take a look. If bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop, and then rook here, maybe?
Rook a d1, yeah.
Yeah.
And the argument would be, this is positional compensation. You're never actually you go queen f6, you can almost go queen b6, and you're like, yeah, how are you going to get that bishop from c8 out?
So maybe I'll go queen c5 then.
And still, you go rook. I guess you can start chasing rook c1.
And can I come back here, or I'll just play queen a5? I think
If you come back, we repeat.
that's very tricky, Yovi. Okay. No, she played it.
Okay.
She played it. Rook a d1 is on the board. Yeah. Some hesitation was there, but she finally played it. And e5 is a forcing move in this position. You cannot play anything else. So, yep.
Only move. And of course, Tan finds it. And again, Ju Wenjun, she's taking her time, but we believe the simplest path to having a small advantage, I would say, for white is simply to capture the bishop and then go bishop to d5, improve that piece, and then just threaten to take on d4 and enjoy the fact that white has the better activity. And Tan, really, now that the position has opened up and now that the structure has clarified, she will have to, I would almost say, depend on a mistake from Ju in order to win this game.
Yeah, the help needs to be massively coming from Ju Wenjun if somehow Tan Zhongyi can get a better position. Yeah, because this is okay. What's the percentage of the game being drawn, Yovi?
Well, we can see it on the evaluation bar in the middle. And the problem is that this is every player's worst nightmare when they're in a must-win situation. You want an unbalanced position where it is level, where there's lots of pieces on the board. And here you can see that there's going to be another set of bishops traded. The pawn center in the middle completely gone. White has the slightly better activity, and those draw odds in the back of her pocket. So yeah, again, you can see it. You can see it in the body language of the players. Ju Wenjun, she's sitting upright, she's sitting tall, whereas Tan, understanding that this is going to be such a mammoth task for her to pull the rabbit out of the hat. And sure enough, bishop takes bishop, pawn takes bishop is going to be there. And then we'll have a response from Ju. Do you think, so I saw an observation, or I had an observation, that Tan's chair is perhaps too low for her. So the queen comes to b4. And it doesn't give her that feeling of empowerment as she's sitting on the board, because you want a chair to be tall. You want to be feeling that you have this massive presence on and off the board.
Yeah, I was noticing this earlier on, but what I also noticed is when we played the recap video from the previous match between Ju Wenjun versus Li Tingjie, I have a suspicion that what Tan Zhongyi is choosing for her chair is the same thing as Li Tingjie's, because it's exactly like that. Ju Wenjun has a rolling chair, and then Li Tingjie had like this 4-leg chair like what Tan Zhongyi is having right now. So they could actually use the same type of chairs like from the previous match too.
No, I'm sure that both players were given a choice of the chairs. This was just like in the World Championship match between Gukesh and Ding. They had a whole row of chairs to choose from, and Gukesh chose the gaming chair and Ding went for something else. But I'm just thinking on a practical level, you need something where you feel very comfortable. You need something where you are just marking out physically your territory. I mean, and there you can see as well, I mean, the chair as it stands there is just towering over Tan. And yeah,
You're absolutely right. Yeah, usually when I have such a chair, I would take off one of my shoes and then I'll bend my leg so that I can have more support in terms of height, so that I can be a little bit towering the table. But of course, it's just so that I can reach the back ring of my opponent's squares easier, because otherwise sometimes in time scramble I do that just to be more just to be more steady and ready for any sort of actions. But here, yeah, you have two type of completely different tastes of chairs here. I would choose Ju Wenjun's chair. I like the modern look and also its efficiency. Rolling, and then I don't want to be stuck in my chair. Like if I can roll it, and then have some little exercise, that would be good.
Yeah.
But everyone has their own taste.
I agree. Well, that's why they say that every president in America has been tall, is because you want that towering presence, you want that psychological impact. And yeah, well, small things. And the match has actually, on the most part, even though this scoreboard has been significantly in Ju's favor, it has been decided on small things. It's been intense, it's been thrilling at times. But when push came to shove, it was decided because Tan had a terrible piece somewhere. And somehow she took the wrong decision and Ju was just relentless. So queen to b4. This is also simple stuff, right? She's just arguing, let's trade off the queens. Let me control the D line. And I will let you enjoy the power of that bishop on c8. Okay, so there we see a5 from Tan. That's going to be met with it should be quick. Queen takes d4.
Yep. And this is the type of move that's similar to bishop takes d4 UV. If you don't play f5 and forcing the queen to take the d4 pawn in this position, after rook takes d4, you can say that this is a very comfortable position for white, and white can actually push for a win. So f5, again, this is the move that whether you like it or not, you have to move it, and then forcing the trade like this, whether you like it or not, you have to trade the queen. So this is such a torturing moment for Tan Zhongyi, knowing that the match situation is not into her favor and she has to play for a win. But Ju Wenjun, with her strength and experience, doesn't let any single chance to be in Tan Zhongyi's way. And now we are on move 22. They have 18 more moves to go to agree for a draw, because, well, I might call it too soon, but come on, be objective in this position. It's pushing for a slight advantage, but I believe Tan Zhongyi will be able to hold it.
Yes, I do think that. Okay, now is a moment of truth, right, for Ju Wenjun, because if she's feeling nervous, she might make a move like b3, and then I do feel like after b3, that's a step in the wrong direction. Maybe black has some chances with a4 at the right time. And now here, I suspect that we're going to see bishop to d5 from Ju Wenjun. She's going to say, let's take it into a double rook ending where my rooks are very well placed. And sure, the position is completely equal because you two can get active with your own rooks, but rook 5 against 5, symmetrical pawn structure, not much in it. No, I mean, Ju Wenjun, she's in business mode. She chose the opening, she made the correct decisions, and look at this. She could have played for being slightly better, but she's like, let me just remove all risk, all the game, all the life from the position, and let me just steer the game into what is almost certainly going to be a draw.
I'm a bit different to you, Yovi. I think in this position, because I like to solve the problem. And in this position, of course, you can argue that there is no problem in White's position, but I still feel a little bit uncomfortable having the king not having any luft. So I would like to move it because I can see that this is not a threat yet. Let's say I play h3, or actually in my mind I would like to play h4. Maybe it doesn't matter, but maybe h3 is more stable. So in my mind, it's like bishop takes a2, and then you can take b7, and after rook b8, then you can have this, and then this is stay with the bishop on b7, and I don't see a way for black to keep going with the game, as in to win the game. Of course, you can play bishop e6, for example. Just put rook on c7, you're good to go. So I think if I were Ju Wenjun here, I don't know which pawn move that she will choose to create a passageway for the king, but that is the idea, that just to solve this background problem, because whenever black takes this pawn on a2, you can simply take the pawn on b7, or otherwise just play a3.
Yeah.
And then whenever there is a... Do we have a move? No, we
A3
don't
is
have
not
it.
something. No, A3 is something that instinctively I would shy away from. But you know something? It's such an important chess lesson, and also a good life lesson. Like when the bishop is attacking the pawn on A2, you thought in a creative way, well, hang on a second, is it really under attack? Whereas I was very much like that character from the Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, we take things literally. I'm like, oh, bishop takes A2, got to stop. So I was just like, bishop D5, the end.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, you need to actually combine both ways of thinking. And the reason why I was going to say why I wouldn't be a big fan of A3 is just because with A5, black can actually come out with the rook to A6. And I can see that actually white might be on the back foot with rook B6, the rook coming to C8, and there might be some kind of pressure against the B2 point. There we're talking about minuscule pressure, not really that much, but I do like your plan of going H4 though. I feel like
Yeah.
that is also a good decision. I don't see anything wrong with bishop to D5. Again, asking questions.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's true too.
let's
Bishop
trade.
e5 is enough too. Yeah. It's just, I don't think it is in Ju Wenjun's style to really straightforward get a drawish position without any fight. Like she can try to still put some trick over the board. Like for example, h4 here, and then the idea is to also just keep going with the pawn h5, because this pawn cannot be taken anyway. Otherwise, the king will be weakened. So, but your ultimate reason of playing h4 is actually to get the king out to h2, should it happen. Yeah, it's also showing to your opponent that, hey, your last move bishop e6 threatening the a2 pawn is not really a threat. I can always take b7 whenever I want to. And the reason why you cannot take it now is because after rook b8, this bishop has to go. There is no more rook d7, and once the rook is entering the second rank, black is better. So I can wait for that moment, and then while waiting, just do some simple, useful waiting move.
Maybe we can play out that variation, just to show like how black manages to get some chances. It's more than they deserve. So rook to b8, and so here you go bishop d5, and now here you can set up moves like rook to d8 for
I think
black.
you can just take this. The idea is after this, and then this is hanging.
Yeah, and this is also what I saw as well. So yeah, and here, you know, unpleasant questions, right? A2, F2, which one do you
Like
let
this,
go?
maybe you can actually go here, I don't know, and then put
Yeah,
another rook on the second rank.
exactly.
It's still looking equal for the evaluation bar, but it's a complication that you should actually avoid.
Yeah, it's totally unnecessary. So I just wanted to play that one out. And okay, so decision time for Ju. She's definitely not going to be taking on b7. But she has her choice, h4, bishop to d5. So many possibilities on the board. And, well, as we go on to break, well, if you've caught the chess bug watching all of these thrilling World Championship games, then you have to check out the chess.com merch store because they have all manner of things chess inspired, including, let me see if I can put it up to that, this very, very cool chess t-shirt with a coffee cup. And if you're like me, you're a little bit fussy with material, don't worry, this is 100% cotton, the highest quality material. You also have, let me, like magic, bring out this very cool desk pad that I've been enjoying over this past few days. This one's in pink, so all play to the pink. And you have very cool chess wall clocks. And one of the great things about just shopping at the merch store is that every purchase that you make goes to support shows like this. So it's such a valuable thing. And so if you want to check out the amazing chess merch from chess.com, visit go.chess.com/merch or use !merch in chat. And as a little bonus, use the code WWC at checkout for 10% off. That's WWC at checkout for 10% off. So that's !merch in chat and code WWC at checkout. And your purchase goes to help make shows like this one. So don't move, because when we go on a break, much more drama to come.
What's up, everybody? We're back for another episode of Chess.com Reads. With me here is Dylan Rittman. He is a senior product manager. He builds a lot of, well, you don't actually build things. What is it you would say you do, Dylan?
I hide behind the developers that actually do the work and build the things.
There you go. That's the best thing to do. Hide behind the developers. I'm hiding behind everyone else as much as I can. But we are now going to do iOS and Google Play Store reviews. We've done support tickets, Dylan. Those can get wild. We've done people who don't like getting closed for cheating, but today's going to be different, and I think you are the man for the job to answer for all the developers that you normally hide behind. So let's jump in.
Let's do it.
The best chess app so far. Used it for years and loved it. However, the frog screech on illegal move is just terrible. Please make it go away, or at least give option to mute that one sound only. Valid sounds are great and make the game feel realistic, but the illegal move screech is annoying. And all I think about while playing Bullet is that I will not play another game until I have a chance to calm down. I know the rules. I don't need the audible clue. My move was illegal. The piece won't move.
Wow. First of all, I never realized it was a frog screech. Like, was that intentional, Dylan? Did we, like, go into the wilderness and, like, record a bullfrog? I've never actually thought about what the illegal move thing sounds like.
Yeah, no, Eric has his pet frog for all these years. I think we got that into the studio and kind of just let it rip for a while.
It honestly checks out. Thank you to the review there. But jokes aside, I don't know what to say besides you have the option to mute your sound. Although I will say I would be in favor, Dylan, of a feature where someone could choose their animal noise or do the old McDonald's spin for whatever animal noise they want for illegal move. Like, I actually would go premium for that. Different animal noises for illegal moves.
Totally agree. I think I just needed like another dog barking, cat meow. Like every illegal move should be slightly different to, keep it fresh a little bit. Keep it going.
And then we could add themes like street noise for those in New York who are just looking to go to sleep with, noise of the city. Like, we could actually get creative here. So feature request accepted, and Dylan will get that on the roadmap right away.
Wear your love of chess on your sleeve with all new apparel and accessories from the chess.com merch store. Maybe you simply want a clock that will never run out, or a mouse pad that will finally unlock your speed chess potential. Whether you play chess to get energized with your morning coffee, or play into the wee hours of the night and witness the occasional alien abduction, we've got something for every king, queen, and knight in shining armor. Even gift cards for your loved ones who've caught the chess bug. So check out the chess.com shop for apparel, accessories, and more. Grab your favorites before they're gone.
The Women's World Chess Championships did not exist until 1927, 41 years after chess's first Open World Championship. It has taken many forms since its start: round robins, double round robins, octuple round robins, Swiss tournaments, head-to-heads of varying lengths, and knockouts. For the first 17 years, the Women's Championship was held by a single player, Vera Menchik, a Czechoslovak born in Russia and living in England. She defended her title 7 times, the last time being in 1939 at the onset of World War II. On June 26, 1944, a deluge of German flying bombs fell upon London. Still holding her title, Vera Menchik unfortunately died in the attack. As the 1940s drew to a close, the Women's World Championship resumed from December 1949 to January 1950. This time, another commanding reign was established, and the so-called Soviet era of women's chess began. From 1950 until 1991, the title of Women's World Champion was held by a Soviet. This era also saw the establishment of a candidate cycle for the Women's Championship, along with the Open. In 1991, the era of Soviet dominance drew to a close. At just 20 years old, Xie Jun brought the Women's World Championship to China for the first time. It would not be the last. Xie held on to the title for 5 years until Susan Polgar secured a candidate's win and triumphed over Xie in the 1996 championship fight. By the time Susan was called to defend her title in 1999, she had a young child and requested to postpone the event. FIDE refused. Instead, the championship would be a fight between the first and second place finishers of the candidates cycle. Xie Jun was back for a title fight, and she defeated Elisa Galiamova convincingly. Over the next few cycles, China struggled to keep a firm grasp on the women's championship, winning and losing the title until 2016. Hou Yifan secured her 4th championship win in 2016, starting a decade of Chinese dominance that still continues to this day. In 2018, Ju Wenjun became the Women's World Champion and has reigned ever since.
And we are back with Game 9 of the FIDE Women's World Championship. And you are seeing Tan Zhongyi playing black. She's in a must-win scenario. Unfortunately, what she wants isn't what she's going to get because Ju Wenjun has shut down the gates. She's gone into full-on business mode and she's ensuring that the position is going to be fizzling out into a draw. We've had a few moves in the break, so let's go and explore exactly what happened. So we were kind of contemplating whether Ju Wenjun would go h4, bishop d5, a3. There were all manner of moves available to her, just not bishop takes b7. Well, Ju Wenjun, she understood that she didn't need to capture that pawn, but instead she offered up a trade and bishop to d5 played. So Tan Zhongyi responded by setting up a pin. a pin is mightier than a sword, they say. Well, not in this case, as Ju Wenjun just simply doubles up on the D line. So again, just re-establishing this whole idea of bishop takes bishop, and Tan Zhongyi tries her hand at getting a back rank checkmate, saying, hey, what about bishop takes bishop now? But of course, Ju Wenjun doesn't fall for that one. She's not women's world champion for no reason, so king to f1 played. And we just had a move. Rook to d6, protecting the bishop on e6.
So there's a simple way to continue this position, of course. Like very, very simple. You grab this bishop and let's say rook takes it, and then you offer another trade in the back rank. Let's take it. And now, however you continue this position, actually you can play something like this, and maybe white is just very, very, very tiny, slightly better. But just because the rook is more active, after b6, it should be fine and it should be draw. But what I'm trying to say is, Yovi, after Tan Zhongyi's last move, rook d6, it's just a silent draw offer. Because I think she already has come to the terms that, okay, I'm not going to win this match. I'm not going to win this game either. Let's just settle for a quick draw. Because after rook d6, in the next two moves, literally, you'll see two out of your three pieces get traded. So it's just getting things way simpler for Ju Wenjun to get what she wants. Taking this, it doesn't matter how you take it with the... Actually, it does matter. If you take with this, you can give this Suzenzug on f7 first, and it's actually white is winning. Or slightly better, just a pawn up. But after rook d6, if you take on d6, e6, and rook takes e6, I'm almost very sure that Ju Wenjun will play this move, rook d8, and then, giving no chance at all. And then in this position, you can continue however you want. You can play rook d7, you can play rook d5, you can play rook d2 with the idea of rook e2 or anything can happen.
Yeah, I really like this concept of exchanging rooks, because if you keep all four rooks on the board, then you do have to worry about black kind of penetrating the second row with rook to c2, etc., etc. So yeah, you just need a draw. That's going to net you the title. So go for the easy road. And Ju Wenjun, she hasn't put a foot wrong in this game. It's just been, I would say, like 98%, 99%, high 90s accuracy. The only thing that I would kind of fault her in would be that she didn't play rook c1 and she didn't apply pressure, but she didn't need to. Mm-hmm. She just saw a way to comfortable equality, to kill the game. And why not go for that?
Exactly. Should we explore the move after bishop takes b7 just for fun?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's actually going to happen after bishop takes b7? Nothing. Black is totally fine. So maybe in this position, you just take this rook, and give a check down there. And after king moves, and maybe you take this pawn.
Irene, you don't need to. Yeah, you can give a check. I was going to say you don't need to. You can go rook c2 as well, but that's not going to. Yeah. That's not going to win you the game. Nothing is going to win the game.
Yeah. This is also pretty equalish, but of course, if you can have just one rook on the board, it's simpler. It's getting closer to what Ju Wenjun wants in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what is the easiest path to equality? Bishop. Well, not even, we don't want equality. We want just draw. So bishop takes bishop. Yeah, that looked very easy. Bishop takes b7 also looked... hang on a second. With bishop takes b7, do you have ideas of bishop c4? No, that doesn't make any sense.
You do, but you can step in like this, because whenever there's a check, you just bring in the other rook to block the check.
Mm-hmm.
And your king is totally safe, and yeah, it's also going to be a draw after all this takes this. But this is with some risk for black, because the king here on e1 is closer to the a5 pawn.
Yeah. And it might be Ju Wenjun squeezing it out, right?
Yep.
Maybe
And
we've got her wrong.
And we also have to remind our dear viewers because probably they would think, okay, there's nothing else you can hope in this position, just over draw. There is a rule in this match that you shouldn't offer a draw before you complete move 40. So it's still a long way to move 40 because they are still on move 25 right now, 15 more moves to go.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still a lot of play left in the position, and the players can get a draw before move 40, but that's only if they repeat the position 3 times. They can't offer that draw. And Ju Wenjun, I like the way that she's so pragmatic. She's been using her time very wisely. She just steadies any nerves, and then off she goes with her very precise way of playing. And technically, she is so good. I mean, we've seen that time and time again, the way she plays these almost flawless endgames. She had a wobble in game 2, where just one slip up, but that was it. For the rest of the games, she's not been putting a foot wrong.
You're right, yes. So we'll see which one that Ju Wenjun is going to play in this position, but I'm almost 100% sure she's going to take the bishop on e6. I'm just trying to come up with some more idea, but I don't want to risk the position at all because if the king moves, let's say to the second rank, there is rook c2, it's unnecessary risk.
Well, there's one danger, right? So you can't just sit there and do nothing. You can't make a pass move such as h3 or b3 or something like that, because there is a threat of black doubling on the d line. So let's make that point clear.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, we cannot really. Okay, let's just put some random move like this on the board. There is a
You
simple
see?
threat. Yes, rook d8 on the board. I mean, my board, not the one that's in China right now. Yeah. So rook d6 is having a simple threat, doubling up the rook on d file, and then this bishop on d5 will lose. So you gotta after rook d6, white has to react. White has to react with the potential of this threat. So the easiest way is to take, but take b7 is also equally good. I don't see any other move.
No. I don't. Bishop takes b7, bishop takes e6. Those are the choices. And it's just simply calculation work, right? You just have to crunch the numbers and make sure that everything is working for you. So yeah, you know, one of the things about this particular variation is that you do have to work out like the black alternative. So that one is absolutely fine for both black and white.
Even this position, yeah.
Yep.
This one is hanging, this one is hanging. So
okay, so bishop takes b7, absolutely fine. Although we saw that you can go bishop takes. So okay, bishop takes e6. Let's run through that one again just to see which one is gonna be the quickest path to the draw. So rook to d8. That's important check. Make those trades.
I think I like this. I like
Me
putting
too.
my rook in the active way and then
a4. Yeah, rook to b5, and then you're going to back that up with a4, b4. I don't see there's anything to be done.
b4. Yeah. Exchange everything on that side, and you can play g3, h4 like this too. Yeah, I don't even see a slightest hope in this position unless in this very moment Ju Wenjun blundered not seeing rook d8. I think that's the only hope, but otherwise it's just completely balanced.
Yeah. You have to hope for that moment of madness. And she's reaching to take the bishop. Okay, we are going to be seeing that line where the rooks are going to be leaving the board. Rook takes e6, very quick. Rook to d8. She's not putting a foot wrong here. Rook takes rook forced. And I'm predicting that we are going to be seeing the line that we just played out with the rook coming to d5. And after 4 wins in a row, Ju Wenjun is just steering the game into comfortable draw.
Comfortable indeed. Like there is almost no risk since move 1 to the current position. Like she's been playing everything perfectly. I mean, to get a draw. But of course, along the way, there was some variation where if she would like to play for more, she could, but there's no reason to do that. And okay, instead of rook d5, she chose to play rook d7. I think they're just going to pass the turns until move 40, because I don't see a way of repeating the position anyway. You just simply move everything. So b6 is already on the board, and maybe in this position, Ju Wenjun will play a move like g3 here, h4, something like that. Keep the king on f1, or what else?
Yes, she can try to make moves such as rook to b7, rook to... I really did like your rook d5 plan. I don't think it's too late for that. Rook d5, rook b5, a4, b4.
Yeah. With such a move, you are controlling the queen side as well. I mean, you'd like to, but we have a move here, g4. Okay.
g4. Okay, that's designed to just restrain Black's pawns on the king side. So basically, Ju Wenjun is saying, hey, you can never advance those pawns without trading them off. It's actually a really good defensive idea for when you're fighting 3 against 4, and one of those extra pawns is a outside pass pawn. So, or 4 versus 3, you do this g4 move just to stop the advance.
So if I play a move like this, for example, like rook e4,
yeah,
h3, and then I'm using the same idea like what I used for white before, how to protect this pawn? Rook d2, b3.
b3.
Yeah, b3.
I'm not afraid of trades, because say you go a4, I will make the trade and then go rook to b7 and say, hey, you target a2, but I target b6, and that makes us even.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Yuvi. Yeah, there's no risk with this pawn g4 at all too. Yeah, the position is that balanced. White can just simply play every single move and then still make a draw. Even g3, even h4 immediately, or h3, all sort of moves like that. Wow. But they need to make another 10 more moves to get into the move where they can overdraw, or just keep finding a way to somehow muddy the waters, although of course it's a very simple position, very balanced endgame.
Yeah, this is the problem for Tan. This is ultimately a drawn, and Ju Wenjun is an excellent endgame player. And so she has to just, okay, she comes up with the king to f6. That's a reasonable move, although the problem with that, I would say, is that the rook is tied down to e6. I would have said the most accurate way was to go rook e4, and then your plan of going rook b4 and then bring up the king. But king f6 is a possibility, and I'm expecting Ju to just hold firm. You know, she can go h3, secure the pawn on g4. She can go rook b7, tie down the black rook.
Yep, because also the king cannot go anywhere. f7 is hanging. Yeah, I like your idea, this one actually, Yovi. Rook b7, it's active. Yeah, this g4 is never suiting my style, to be honest, because I don't want to give my opponent some idea to give some counter attack. That's why I like a more stable structure like g3, h4. Everything is protected. Everything is having only one route of pawn chain that is on f2, because now after you play g4, for the time being, you have 3 routes over there, but maybe it will come down to 2 routes. So it's something that I would like to avoid in the end game. If it's not giving me any edge or any advantage, like I don't think it's necessary. But again, white is spoiled with many choices to keep the game balanced. So of course, the Falbar says it's still pretty much zeros.
Yeah, this is, yeah, completely. I mean, black's problem is that, say you put your rook on b7, the black rook is tied to the defense of b6, the king is tied to defense of f7. So there's just not going to be a way to advance. Like somehow, if that pawn went on g4, like I know you like your stable pawn structure, I agree. It's nice to have those as well. But say the white pawn was on g2, and if black could somehow get an h5, g5, slide the king, get f5, and then we start being tricky, right? The further up the board you are with the pawns, the more complicated it is. But here, Ju Wenjun, she's just saying, okay, it's not the one that you most think about, this construction of g4, but she's saying it's enough. And is she going to play h3? No, she puts her rook b7, the rook on e6 is tied to the 6th rank in order to defend b6. And if Tan wants to mix it up, maybe she can try for an h6 and king g5.
Yeah, you're right here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
maybe we can investigate like how to go wrong. So h6. Okay, no,
she played
h5.
h5 instead of h6. Wow. Okay. I think you can take, you can play h3, but I'm leaning towards taking.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards taking as well, and so is Ju Wenjun, as the pawns leave the board. And is her idea going to be king goes to g2? Yeah. This is the thing, the black rook cannot activate to e2 where it wants to be, so king slides over to g6.
UV, I think there's already like a silent agreement here that both players know that this game is going to end with a draw anyway. They've been blitzing their moves so far, especially for Tan Zhongyi, because for Ju Wenjun it's very clear that she would like to get a draw, but the resistance should come from Tan Zhongyi. But in this endgame, she didn't resist at all. Hardly so. I mean, this is not her fault. I mean, the position itself, you cannot even take any risk in this position.
Yep, and there's still some moves to go before move 40, but she has played f6, so she has the idea of switching the rook to c6, get the rook as active as possible, and then maybe stepping up with the king. King g5, king f5, and then getting a check. Maybe the rook doesn't belong on c6, Irene. Maybe it belongs on d6.
King g5, f5, and so on, yeah?
Yeah. Or king f5,
Yeah.
Throw in some checks and be a pain.
Looking at this position, I like my idea even more with this rook d5 and rook b5. It's just more active.
Yes. And it was such a simple plan. You just go a4, b4, like there was nothing that black could do to fight that one.
Exactly, yeah. But okay, if we were white in this position, what would we do? Do we stay still? Like, we have all this sort of waiting move, like rook b8, rook b7. I think it wouldn't really change the evaluation, but she played something that is h4.
h4. She's just improving her position. And so now I'm expecting a rook to slide over. I would put it on d6 just because there you have the possibility to give a check on d3.
As soon as you put your rook on d6, I'll just put f3 to stop anything on d3 square. Just no check at all.
Yeah. And then the plan was to go king f5, king e5.
Yeah, whenever you step out like that, there's always a check too. Okay, king f5 is on the board. I'm so tempted to play rook h7 right now, just to lure the king back to g6. To g6.
Oh, yeah. That's a nice idea because rook e2 is going to be met with rook takes h5, and then the rook can come back to b5.
Mhm.
And did you see that? How quickly she played? Nope, the king has to step back and defend h5.
And maybe they will repeat the moves until move 40 here, like king g6 back, and then rook b7 again, and then king f5 again, and rook h7. So, okay, there's at least one repetition right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, you might as well play this on with black. And the question is how to do that. So I do believe in improving the rook. Secondly, you can try a4, just to come and creep. And then you kind of want to be setting up something such as when the king steps forward to f5, maybe it's complicated enough with king e4. I don't believe quite what I'm saying though, Irene.
Yeah, I also have difficulties in suggesting moves in this position. You can try all sort of ideas here, putting rook on d6, c6. Eventually, white will not really react. The only thing that white will just do is pretty much put the pawn on f3, and then the rest of the moves, white will be just waiting until if black does something like what we saw with king f5, then white will react to h7. But if you just stay on this area, like if you play rook c6, I play f3, you play rook d6, I play rook b8. I'm just going to wait as well. The thing is, whenever the king moves, it's time for the rook to go to the back rank and get this pawn under attack. So I think the drawing idea is very simple here.
Yeah. And yeah. No, I'm just okay, Irene. So Ju Wenjun has made her intention clear. She just wants to stand. Tan, if she wants to gamble, can she first go rook c6, king f5, and you want to meet this idea of rook h7 with king e4 and just locking out the rook? Is there any chance for something like that?
But the thing is, whenever you, okay, there are only two things, yeah? You can move your king right now only to f5 or h6. But f5, we have rook h7. h6, it doesn't really mean anything. I can just play whatever, like
Yeah.
f3, for example.
Oh,
And then whenever you play rook c6 or rook d6, f3 has to be there first and wait. So whenever you play king f5, I still have rook h7 again. You don't really have any tempo to bring your king.
she's
And there you go.
repeating. You could see the
Yep.
emotion on her face, the sadness, the disappointment. This is not the final battle that she wanted. Ju Wenjun just controlling the pace of the game, king to f5. Ju Wenjun will respond with attacking the pawn on h5, and the look on the face of Tan just says it all, Irene.
Exactly. Yeah, it's heartbreaking to see such emotion, of course, but we have to give it to Ju Wenjun for playing such a great match. Many of her games in this match, I would call it like endgame masterpieces. So she is a deserving winner.
Absolutely. Really giving us a masterclass almost every single game in positional chess. The king steps back and Ju Wenjun will repeat the dance. The rook will come to b7, attacking the b6 pawn. And
yes, she's just checking whether if she plays rook b7, it's going to be a 3-volt repetition, because technically they're still on move 38 right now, 2 more moves to go to the 40th move. But if you can get the draw as early as possible, then why not? So she's checking her score sheet whether rook b7 is the 3-volt.
yeah, I don't think it is.
I don't think so too.
I think she would have to play King F5 again, and then it would be a threefold repetition. But it's always a good idea to check.
Exactly. Yeah, I think eventually she'll just play rook b7, and after king f5, then she's going to claim the 3-volt, because if she has the intention of playing rook h7 again, then she's just going to write that move down on her score sheet and call the arbiter. And when the arbiter checks everything, yes, it will be the claim will be approved. Oh, she's claiming it now.
And we have a handshake. It is a draw. History repeats and legend regains in Chongqing as Ju Wenjun becomes Women's World Champion for an astonishing 5th time. Wow, she made it look effortless. That victory that crowns her as one of the greats in women's chess. And she's just the 4th woman in history to win the Women's World Championship title 5 times. Just a dominant, almost smooth performance from start to finish. And that draw there just showed her class. She was in business mode from start to finish. Tan Zhongyi just did not get a chance. Congratulations, Ju Wenjun, Women's World Champion for the 5th time in a row.
Congratulations to Ju Wenjun, and congratulations for Tan Zhongyi as well for putting up a fight. And yes, big congratulations for the Chinese Chess Federation too, because for many years now, the title is always home.
Yeah, it just goes to show how incredible Chinese chess is for the women's, for the men's, how they just keep on bringing up superstar after superstar. And there we see another legend in the making, world champion Ju Wenjun, only the 4th woman in history to win the title 5 times. She's up there alongside Vera Menchik, Nona Kaprinashvili, Maya Chibudanetsi, and now it is Ju Wenjun. She is just stamping her authority on women's chess. She is just carving out her legacy, not just now, but also for future generations, because what a performance she put on, just winning 4 games in a row and just making it seem like it was all very natural.
Indeed. She has all the experience to make this look very effortless, Yovi. And yeah, I just cannot wait to see the press conference. Maybe it's time for the players to reveal who in their team, who is helping them. I mean, we know there are already 2 grandmasters from each side, but I am hoping for more, because I think the team is bigger than what they already revealed before.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear who was in the teams. We know certain names, but let's remind ourselves of the scoreboard, because it just took Ju Wenjun 9 games, but she did it. She got to 6.5 points, 2.5 points for Tan Zhongyi. It was intense. It was thrilling. It had us on the edge of our seats, but ultimately Ju Wenjun just emerged as the clear victor. Wow. I mean, her performance takes my breath away, because it was sublime, Irene, at times.
Indeed. So out of the 12 planned or scheduled games, they played 9. So it feels like it's a tournament, like an open Swiss tournament with 9 rounds. And Ju Wenjun show her domination over Tan Zhongyi. But again, I have a feeling, Yovi, in this match, Tan Zhongyi was quite underperformed, because in the candidates in many of the tournaments that she won before, in Norway Chess, in Cairns Cup, she played really, really good chess. And we don't know what's happening with her, but I'm just hoping that she can bounce back from the loss in this match and keep shining, because she is a very great player too.
Absolutely, she is a fantastic player. And on that note, we are going to take a break, and when we return, we are going to hear from the reigning 5-time Women's World Champion Ju Wenjun and Tan Zhongyi in the press conference. So don't go anywhere.
欢迎大家来到第9轮的新闻发布会。我们首先恭喜具文君，赢了这个比赛。
I want to start off with questioning both players. Today was an important day. Ju just had to draw. Tan, you could go all in. What was your mentality like going into today's game?
首先这个问题想问2位棋手，具文君，你这盘棋只需要半分就可以成功卫冕，然后谭仲仪是需要全劲拼搏，请问你们俩有什么感受？请具文君先回答可以吗？
因为盘棋，我只要获得和棋就可以了，所以作为白棋，我会选择相对平稳的变化。所以说，我觉得相对来说，对我来说，更容易选择一些平稳的变化。
This game as white, I only needed a draw, so as white, it was easier for me to choose something solid. 很中意。
我觉得没有，当然我肯定想把这个局面复杂化，但是在比赛当中我确实没有找到什么机会，我觉得他下得挺好的。
I want to, of course, complicate the position as much as possible, but I think she played very well.
And Ju Wenjun, this is of course your 5th consecutive title. How does this achievement compare to the other championships that you played?
具文君，这个当然是你第5次卫冕，那这个比赛的成功跟之前的比赛有什么区别吗？
我想就是每一次的比赛，就这个世界冠军刚才对我来说都是一个独一无二的、特别珍贵的一次经验。那么我这次能够获得成功，我也想，就是感谢我的团队吧，他们有那个妮华、马克西姆和王平。
So every match was very special, and this, of course, was a very good learning experience for me. And I want to thank for my team. They were Grandmaster Nihua, Grandmaster Maxime, and 最后一位可以重复一下吗？
王平。
Grandmaster Wang Ping.
And for Tan Zhongyi, although the match score doesn't reflect the actual skill we saw in the games were very, very tight, and you showcased exceptional skill. How would you assess your performance throughout the match?
这个问题是想问谭仲仪，虽然这次比分不利，但是这并不表现出来你的真正的实力。那你这次有什么感想吗？
我觉得我确实在就是比赛当中暴露了一些挺严重的问题。我会在之后的比赛之后的训练当中想办法去改进它。如果我还想就是继续走下去的话，我必须去面对这个问题，我没有办法去回避它。与其说是我的对手他做得好，不如说我做的可能有一些糟糕。我也会和我的团队一起来想办法。
So I think in this championship match, I exposed some of my weakness, and afterwards in my trainings, I will continue to try to fix them because if I want to continue in this professional chess player journey, and I feel like I just have some weaknesses that I need to fix together with my team.
And Ju Wenjun, how would you assess your play and your opponents in this match?
那具文君怎么评价你这次比赛的表现呢？
我觉得这次比赛，我在一开始其实我的表现并不是太好的，但是可能在第4轮之后吧，我觉得因为比分打平之后，渐渐的我慢慢的进入了状态，那么可能之后我就越来越发挥的更好一些。
So in this match, initially the beginning wasn't very smooth for me, but after the fourth round, after I catch up on the score, I feel I was playing more and more in the zone.
And your opponent's play? For Ju Wenjun to reflect on Tan's play in this match.
那你怎么觉得谭中怡的表现？
我觉得我的对手，怎么说呢？他表现的可能没有他的真实的水平那么好，就可能在第5轮之后吧，我觉得他可能是一些我也不太确定，有一些比赛的压力或者是什么，可能影响了他的发挥。我觉得他在之后，其实没有表现出他最好的水平。
I feel she underperformed. I wasn't sure, but maybe the stress after round 5 caught to her, so she definitely is better than what she did in this match.
So you've mentioned round 1s and round 5 as key rounds. Do you think this was the turning point, round 5, for the match going in your favor and building the momentum?
所以您说到了第1轮和第5轮是一个非常重要的器具时刻。那您觉得第5轮的时候是非常重要的一个转折点吗？
我觉得是吧，因为第5轮之后也是我首次在比分上获得领先，那么相对来说可能落后的那方会更有压力，会消耗更多的能量去面对这个比分吧。
Yes, I believe so, because from the 5th round it was my first time taking the lead. Therefore, I think the player that's behind had to deal more energy with the pressure.
For both players, do you have a favorite game from this match?
想问问两位棋手，哪一轮棋是你们最喜欢的对局？从居文君开始可以。
可能是，其实我觉得都还可以，但是那真的很满意的话，应该是，就是昨天那盘黑棋，我觉得，我在后面我都，在获得优势之后掌握了一些，就是获得优势之后，我觉得我就是用一种比较稳健的方式赢得了对局。
In my opinion, every game was good, but if we want to discuss my favorite one, it would be yesterday as black. Once I had the advantage, I felt my approach was solid. 那就谭中怡可以。
我有点记不清了，好像应该是第7轮，我记得应该是判黑棋，就是我创造了比较好的机会，但是中间非常的复杂，然后我看到了很多，但是我在选择当中的时候就是没有做到很精确，我输掉了那盘棋。就从那一盘棋之后，确实我觉得我已经就是这个比赛已经无力挽回了，但是那盘棋从整个的构思上面来说，我还是很喜欢。
Not sure if I remember this correctly, but I believe it would be the 7th game, and I was black, because in that game I created a lot of opportunities, so there were some exciting variations, but I missed it and I lost. And after that round, I felt it was a little bit helpless to save the match situation.
And I think what a lot of people are curious about in these World Championship matches are the teams behind the players. So Ju Wenjun, you've already noted your teams. Tan, we want to know your team. But more importantly for both, I want to know how much work went on the board and off the board with both of your teams.
就是这个比赛，当然团队是一个非常关键的因素。那刚才鞠文君已经说了他的团队，谭忠义可以说一下你的团队吗？
首先非常感谢我的团队，因为我们在一起训练了很久，然后就是我虽然表现得不太好，但是我的团队一直给我的鼓励，然后直到最后一盘棋我们都没有放弃。我的团队主要是这个杰弗瑞熊，然后许翔宇，然后那个周维奇，也很感谢他们，然后也希望能够在之后的就是比赛或者是其他的机会当中继续合作。虽然是输掉了这个比赛，但是因为他们的陪伴，其实我可能降低了很多就这种难过的心情。
So I really want to thank my team. They because we've been working for a long time now, and they really helped me a lot. They are Grandmaster Jeffrey Xiong, Grandmaster Xu Xiangyu, and Grandmaster Zhu Weiqi, Zhou Weiqi, and yeah, because of their accompaniment, it really decreased my sadness of losing this match. So I'm very thankful for them, and hopefully we will continue to collaborate together.
然后还想问问你们是和团队怎么就是在棋上一起合作的，和棋以外的一起合作？可以一些。两位棋手的，可以问问鞠文君吗？先。
我这个更多的是一个赛前的一个针对性的训练吧，就是赛前我会在我比赛的空余时间对对手进行一个全面的准备。那么那个马西姆、马特拉科夫和尼华他们都会帮助我就是通过线下或者线上就是有很多关于棋的一些准备。那么在比赛中也是他们非常认真，有的时候我休息了，他们还在看棋，然后同时也帮我节省了很多体力，让我更加用心的去在棋盘中发挥出最好。然后王平老师他也是为我就是陪同我每一次的比赛，那么也是在我比赛的时候会经常赛后开导我。
So towards this match, it was more positional training towards my opponent in my free times. They were both online and in person. They save a lot of energy for me because even though I went to rest, sometimes they would still check the positions for me. And so that's for Grandmaster Nihua and Maxime. And for Wang Pin, it was very comforting.
And final question for both players from my side is, what's next in your chess careers? What are your plans and goals going forward?
就是接下来想问问两位棋手，你们之后有什么打算呢？谭忠义想回答吗？
首先可能调整一下，然后我后面还有就是大奖赛，希望将这个比赛对我后面的比赛的影响降到最低。还有就是可能放松一下，因为可能就是生活还要继续，然后也和我的团队也放松一下，因为我们经历了很长时间的一个备战，也大家都很辛苦。我觉得我可能只是精神上比较煎熬，可能我的团队身体和精神都很煎熬，所以说大家也需要一些休息。然后其他的其实我也没有想太多，就因为比赛的时候相对还是比较专注的。
So I will readjust and rest for a little bit because I still have the Grand Prix coming up for me. I want to just continue living my life, and I also want my team to relax a little bit because they've been working for a long time, and I feel this tournament I was more psychologically tired, but for my team it's probably both physically and psychologically. 那朱文君可以回答这个问题吗？
那么在这次比赛之后，我会参加就全运会，我会继续的在国际象棋上展现自我。不过首先我可能会暂时的休息一下，调整一下。那么今后我也会继续在棋上就再去在比赛中有好的发挥。
So after this match, I have the Chinese intellectual game match, and I also want to relax a little bit, but I will continue working on my chess.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from journalists on the floor?
非常感谢。那我们媒体同事有问题吗？
Yeah, just a question for Ju. Congratulations, first of all, for her 5th title defense. I know Charlize kind of touched on it already, but I was curious whether if this defense is special for Ju in some way, because she is now the first Chinese woman to defend the title 5 times, putting in or a par with Gaprindashvili and Chiburitse.
这个问题是想问具文君的。那这次比赛您是成功第5次卫冕，然后是作为中国的第1位女棋手，这样子达到这样的成就，和之前的 Gaprindashvili 和 Chiburitse 是一样的成就，您有什么感受吗？
我想说，这能有这样的成就，我想也离不开团队和过去所有帮助我的人。其实就像我之前的比赛，每一次我也有落后的时候，那个时候其实也是需要克服所有的困难。那么能够获得5次冠军，那么也想感谢倪华教练在每一次的比赛中都为我提供了很多的国际象棋的指导，还有关于对手的准备和各方面。
So this achievement cannot be achieved without my team and all the help that I've received, because in the past matches I was sometimes behind and I had to overcome difficulties. A special thanks for Grandmaster Nihua for his chess help and other aspects as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And just another question then for Ju in that case, that she's come from behind now in quite a few of these matches. The last 2 matches, I think, she came from behind as well. And whether those early losses in some way help her focus and make her want to take revenge against her opponent, perhaps.
就是刚才您谈到了之前也有比赛您落后了，那就是之前落后会有这种想复仇的这种心理吗？就是重新上来。
我觉得可能我落后之后，我更多的就是还是按照自己的风格吧，肯定还是要在每一次每一招上去尽力去跟对手去斗的，一定是永远不会放弃的，就是直到比赛结束前。
Yeah, in those scenarios where I was behind, I think I would still follow my style and try to find the best move and never give up until the last moment.
Just final question for Ju as well, that, of course she's just achieved this important victory and moment, but are there any other future goals or ambitions that she might have her eye on, maybe another title defense or going over 2600 in rating again?
这个最后一个问题问具文君，那您这个之后对国际象棋这方面的成就会有就是更大的设想吗？比如说就是下一次也卫冕，或者就是想要突破2600分。
现在，我今年就是有一个全运会，那么我会努力把这个比赛下好。那么今后的话，我想我会一直在国际象棋里面去做一个国象人，暂时还没考虑那么多。
I haven't thought that far. This year I have the National Intellectual Games match and I want to play that well.
Sure, thank you. And just one question to Tan as well, if I may, which is, I want to thank her for her opposition and fighting spirit through these games. But, during the candidates, whilst it was a different match format, she had a much greater range of openings that we saw here. Does she perhaps have any thoughts about, going for C4 and the Sicilian here, and perhaps whether she should have mixed it up a bit more like she did in the candidates?
就是这个问题是想问谭忠仪，首先感谢您给我们带来的这个精彩对局。然后呢，在候选人的时候，您有选择多样化的一些开局，然后这个比赛我们可能少见了一些开局选择，您有一些评论吗？
确实，我觉得我的开局储备还是比较广的。这一次主要的原因是我出问题也不是出在开局上面了，所以说我也没有去切换我的开局，就是我觉得更多确实还是我自身的问题。然后其实我觉得我的团队确实在开局方面给到了我非常强大的帮助，我也非常感谢他们。
So I feel like my opening knowledge is still quite broad, so when I feel the games weren't because of the opening problems, therefore I did not change my opening choice. It's more like my own mistakes, and I really want to thank my team again because of them. They helped me a lot.
Do we have any more questions?
还有其他问题吗？
Then that concludes our final press conference. Thank you everyone for joining us every day. It was a wonderful and successful World Championship match, and congratulations once again to Ju Wenjun and Tan Zhongyi for your fighting spirit and strength.
谢谢大家。那我们最后的一次新闻发布会就到此截止。感谢两位棋手和感谢大家。
And there we heard from the players for one final time, and what a gracious press conference there from both players. And Ju Wenjun just giving everyone a nod of thanks as she leaves the building. But you could also tell there was a toll on the players. They thanked their teams, but they both kind of reference how difficult it is actually to play a World Championship match, the amount of preparation involved.
Yeah, definitely, Yovi, because it should take a toll of their energy, time, and money too. So yeah, it's everything. I think they've been pouring every single thing in their life to be able to perform the best of their chess in this match. And yeah, congratulations for both. It's been such a pleasure commentating the match. I've learned so much things over the course of 8 games that I was here, 7 games that I was here. And big thanks to you, Yovi. You've been such a great commentator. It's always a pleasure to be commentating with you.
Thank you, Irene. And the pleasure is mutual. I also got to say, Ju Wenjun, she's been very instructive all the way. 9 games, she has clinched her 5th world title. And she's been absolutely dominating throughout from start to finish, and she is now standing tall as a 5-time women's world champion. And now I'd like to give my official thanks to you, Irene, and also to my earlier co-host, Judith Polgar. It has been an absolute pleasure to be commentating every move, every turning point, every decisive moment in those games. And I'd also like to thank, on behalf of Irene, myself, and Judith, And chess.com, I thank you at home for tuning in to the 2025 FIDE Women's World Championship. It has been an incredible couple of weeks of play, and we hope to see you back here on the Chess24 channel for whatever thrills the next event brings. But for now, we're going to leave you with the sights and sounds of Ju Wenjun's race to her incredible 5th title. It's goodbye from us. Now we're gonna see the decision, and it is c4.
What is happening? Look at that. This is move 40. This is crazy if Tan will take the lead after game 2. This way. Completely unnecessary loss today for her.
E4 c5 is currently on the board right now. Wow, another Sicilian. King g5 is on the board, and this is the winning move. Whenever she knows that she's losing, she's not backing down. Just keep pushing the pawn, play h6, and it is a brilliant move.
We have resignation. Ju Wenjun strikes back.
It's first move c4.
They are consistent, and it is Ju Wenjun, the one who is bearing knight to f6.
Preserving this.
I mean, she didn't play. She didn't play queen e2.
Ooh, g5 Jovi.
Oh, hats off to Ju Wenjun as she finds the best move. Okay, she just plays bishop to f6. Very stable move.
And we see a move h4. Oh my gosh, this is a typical mistake by Zhongyi. When she's under pressure, she cracked.
There you go.
Yes.
King comes in. And Ju well on her way to getting a victory. 2 back-to-back victories. She takes a 2-point lead in the match.
Quick thought again before it comes. Second move e6 or something else. Knight c6. Oh, okay. Then this is getting very interesting.
King g7, and in it comes. Bishop a8. Oh, what a miserable square for that piece.
There we see the sigh from Tan Zhongyi.
She now leads 5 points to 2, and it's e4, e5. No big surprise.
Looking at the position, Ju Wenjun, I think she's gonna be just go all in because there is no risk.
And we have handshake. Ju Wenjun does it again, 4 wins in a row, and now stands just half a point away from making history. She sticks to the Sicilian, and Ju Wenjun has been showing that she knows exactly how to lock this type of position down. This is every player's worst nightmare when they're in a must-win situation. White has the slightly better activity and those draw odds in the back of her pocket.
Tan Zhongyi's last move, rook d6, is just a silent draw offer.
Okay, we are going to be seeing that line where the rooks are going to be leaving the board. Rook takes e6, very quick. Rook to d8. After 4 wins in a row, Ju Wenjun is just steering the game into comfortable draw. She's repeating. You could see the emotion on her face, the sadness, the disappointment.
Oh, she's claiming it now.
And we have handshake. It is a draw. History repeats and legend regains in Chongqing as Ju Wenjun becomes Women's World Champion for an astonishing 5th time.